Hello everybody, how's it going? My name is Ghostboy259. Welcome to Reality Escape. This is Quick Game, Quick Thoughts, where I play a game for an hour and then give you my unscripted thoughts on it. And today, I played Age of War. I mentioned this in my tower defense video. I said I didn't classify it as a tower defense game. Some people did. That's fine. Personally, I don't know. It's like kind of in its own little thing, its own little genre. But this is, to me, is like a classic. If you're about to watch a playlist of every episode of this, or if you're just like the second episode, but trust me, in future episodes, I will be saying this a lot. This is one of those games that I used to play instead of doing work in school. And I don't just mean like elementary school or middle school, like messing around in the computer lab. I'm talking like fully not like in university. This is probably what I was playing instead of paying attention, because they're just fun. They're mindless fun games. So what we have here is basically a kind of a 1 versus 1, kind of sending waves to attack each other. You each have a base with health. You each have access to, well, here's the thing, I say each, but it's only it probably could be multiplayer, and it'd be kind of fun if someone made like an online multiplayer with the same kind of concept, but it's you versus an NPC. There are 3 difficulties. I only play on the easiest one because I'm not very good at games. And yeah, so there's like a couple different ages. I guess we'll get into the units first. So there's basically 3 different levels of units depending on how much money you have. You get money from killing other units. You get experience from killing other units. You can use the experience to go into a different age, which there are more expensive units, but when you kill the more expensive units as well, you also get more money and more experience, so it does level you up quite nicely. But yeah, basically for the unit side of things, there are 3 different types of units. There'll be like a super expensive one that's, the middle one is normally ranged, which means it's weaker when it's facing something directly, but it's a little more it's very helpful if you have like a big tanky unit in the front and you put that behind because it kind of adds support. And you have like your most basic one, which is I hardly ever use them, but like if you're desperate or like someone's about to come attack you and you really need to do something about it, then yeah, that's probably the situation in which you would want to use the weaker unit. And then you've got turrets, and this is kind of why some people said, oh, well, this might be a tower defense game, but you've got these turrets that can attach to your base. You can have up to 4, but it does cost quite a bit of money to add more spots, and it does cost quite a bit of money to buy the really good, worthwhile turrets. So you can have up to 4. The thing about them is that very few you actually use. Like you're only gonna have 1 or 2 in the first age or something like. Well, no, really, you're gonna have 1. It's probably gonna be the egg one. There's some that you just never use because they're too expensive too early on, and by the time you can actually start to make decent enough money, you have enough experience to evolve to the next age. So you generally don't use all of them, but when it comes to the end game, the turrets are probably like the biggest factor. They're probably the one thing that you really want to use because they're pretty good. In fact, the very last tower, the highest turret you could possibly get, if it's attacking an enemy in front of the enemy base, it will literally just start shooting the enemy's base until the other thing has died, which is kind of funny. And because it's like you could be sending troops to kill the enemy and then accidentally kill him by just having really powerful turrets. But turrets, I think, are most important end game. Early game, you kind of want 1 or 2, but you don't want to like spend all your money saving up for the 4 slots. The slot button sucks. I'm just going to say that right now. The add turret button, I clicked that on accident once and literally lost a game because of it, because I didn't have my special and I didn't have any money to send out any guys, and I literally died because of it, so that sucks. I wish there was a confirmation button, but I'm not going to judge a game that's like probably over 15 years old. I don't even know how old Age of War is, but you know, that soundtrack from that first little bit is like ingrained in my brain, as I'm sure it is with many of you. And no, I'm not going to play it right now because copyright issues. The other thing, as I mentioned before, is you have your specials. So each age has its own special. And I guess I'll cover each age as well, so I'll do that while I cover the special. You first start off with like the prehistoric kind of Stone Age idea. You got like dinosaurs and cavemen and slingshots and stuff like that. Your second one you move on to is like medieval themed, fantasy themed. You've got knights and swordmen and crossbowmen. Oh, I didn't even talk about the special in the first one. Dude, I need to start taking notes for this show. So the first special is a bunch of meteors falling from the sky. It's not bad. The meteors tend to miss quite a bit, but every time you think that you've wasted it because none of your meteors hit, it always lasts a little bit longer than you'd expect. So you do end up hitting a couple things, which is nice. But it's not the best. And for the specials in general, I don't know if they like only happen where you put the screen. So like if you're hoping to kill a bunch of things, you kind of have to be looking at them on your screen. If they're off camera, then I don't think it actually affects them. For the second one, you're medieval themed and you have the flaming arrows, which I personally like because they're like instant kill and there's a crap ton of them. From there you move on to like a Renaissance age. You have cannons, you have cannoneers, dueling swordsmen, musketeer firing guys. The special here is by far the worst one because it just heals your units, and generally you want something more offensive, and it heals your units for like 5 seconds, and sometimes it doesn't even heal fast enough and you still lose your units. So basically if you're healing your units and your guy dies anyways, you just don't have the special. So I generally wait until I have more, I go past the experience threshold and use the arrows one last time so I can spend as little time in this age as I possibly can. But yeah, that's just a preference. Next up, you have like a modern army military themed. You've got tanks, you've got gunmen. This is probably like where you really want to start to use the turrets. I feel like they're probably the most effective here. Maybe in the cannon one as well. But this is where they really become like a factor in that you can have stuff that will kill pretty much any unit before it even reaches your base. The special here is a plane dropping a bunch of bombs, which is probably my favorite because it drops it in a row starting from left to right, which is just better because then you can pretty much tell exactly where it's going to drop, where it's going to go, and you can be a little more precise with your placement in it. And so if you can kind of go with no units. If you have a turret holding stuff off of a bunch of units or in front of your base, just clear them all out. And then finally we go into space, and space has like the best turrets ever. Like I mentioned, you have turrets that can literally kill the final boss for you, and space also has 4 soldiers to it. You've got like a futuristic soldier, or 2 futuristic soldiers, tanks, and you have like the future soldier, I believe it's called. And the future soldier is like super expensive but super good. But like I said, if you have the ion cannon, then you don't even really get a chance to use him because is it the ion cannon I'm thinking of? Anyway, it'll just pretty much win the game for you. That's on easy, of course. I didn't play on the harder difficulty modes. I'm not exactly sure how it works. Oh, I guess I should also say too, the special for the futuristic space one is a satellite beam that just comes and wipes everything out. I don't know if it does it in left and right, I don't remember. But also extremely useful, and I like that one too. Really the only one I don't like is the healing one, and I feel like most people will probably agree with me there. It's just, you don't want healing because the units aren't that good either. It's not like you have like a tank or something really big and cool to heal. You're just healing like guys walking around. So I did play this on easy. I know people have beat it on the 2 harder difficulties. It is a little bit more, I think, like more, the strategy is a little more written out. There's certain things you have to do. You have to like use your ability first before you use any troops, and get certain turrets before you get certain guys. It's very formulaic, where I think is if you're playing on easier modes, you can kind of improv it a little bit and kind of do whatever you think is right. I like the turrets. I like that the turrets kind of stick around after you upgrade, so it's not like when you upgrade to a new age you lose the old turrets. They're still there, they're just not as effective, but in some cases they are. And having the 4 turrets is nice. The soldiers are good. They, depending on what kind of soldier you're sending out, what kind of unit you're sending out, it does take longer to send them out. And when they get a little more expensive, you have to use your money a little bit more wisely. I find that no matter what you're doing, you're probably going to take some damage in your own base, which is fine because it's not like you need to be perfect. If you could do like a perfect run, you'd probably have played this game quite a bit. You wouldn't be able to do it on like your first try. And the last thing I want to talk about is the AI. The AI generally upgrades right when you do, but sometimes if you're ahead, they won't. Basically, the main thing that separates you from the AI would be the fact that you have these special powers and they do not. And I would almost argue they have more money than you. It seems like the AI is perfectly just one step ahead of you enough until you get to the final stage, and then the game gives you things that they don't have for you to take over. I'm sure it's possible to beat the game before you get to the space age, but if that's possible, I don't know how to do it. I'm not nearly good enough, but maybe I'll look into that after and see just exactly if that is possible. I think my biggest thing for this, and like I said, I know it's kind of like, it's a Flash game, it's old, it's been around for probably 15 years. I would be shocked if it was anything less than that. And to me, I think like someone should bring this kind of game back, this one-on-one battle, and do something where it's multiplayer, play against another human, because then I think you could really mess up with the strategies of, have more ages, stuff like that. I know there is an Age of War 2, which I'm not going to be covering for a little bit because I have other games that are a little more prioritized, but Age of War 2 is on the list for me to cover. It just won't be next week, it'll be sometime next month probably. But ultimately, I really enjoy it. It's a fun little game. I think if you're playing like a full thing through and you don't die early like I did twice, it takes maybe 20 minutes, maybe less than that. The harder difficulties are less appealing to me because I don't know what the difference is. I don't know if the NPC gets more money or if his units are just harder to kill. I imagine it's most likely the units are just harder to kill, which just means you have to be a little more patient, which is basically playing the same game but playing it slower. So not 1000% completely into that, but to each their own. If you're into the harder difficulties, that's fine. But let me know what you guys think of Age of War. Let me know what you think about this genre of game. And like I said, it's super simple. And as always, there's a link down in the description if you guys want to play it. I'm pretty sure it is a Flash game, which means it won't be available if you're watching this after like 2020. But hopefully we can find some way to preserve games like this. I'm terrible at telling if a game is a browser game or a Flash game. Originally, this show was just Flash games, and then I couldn't tell the difference, so I said, what, screw it. It's all games. But if this game does stick around, and I don't know what happened to the developer, it's really just like his name, just a game made by, but it's a really good, solid game, and I hope that he's still making games out there wherever they may be, and I hope that we can bring this back and do some kind of multiplayer thing with this, because I think that would be pretty swell, to be honest with you. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think. If there's a game like this that you want me to talk about, let me know. If there's any other Flash game, browser game, even mobile games that you want me to talk about, drop a comment. Let me know down below, or you can tweet at me directly at ghostboy259, at realityescapeyt. I check both of those because I run both of those, because why would I hire somebody else to do it for me? Let me know what you think about Age of War. If you haven't played it, go play it. This is like a staple of the browser game community. You won't find like a kid over 20 who grew up on the internet who hasn't played this game. And if that's you, well, I'm sorry, but go play it. It takes 25 minutes to do one game. It's fun. It's not very replayable in that sense unless you're like trying to perfect the harder modes or speed run it, which there is a little bit of a speed run community, which is kind of fun. So shout outs to them. And that's it for this week, or that's it for this episode of Quick Game, Quick Thoughts. I will see you next week, and have a good weekend, guys.